All right, so let's start this broadcast with a big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. This has been dubbed as an escalation unlike any other. Today is day 5 since hostilities have broken out between Israel and the Palestinian Hamas faction. And according to reports that have come in, more than 1,000 people have died on the Israeli side and at least about 1,000 people have died on the Palestinian side since the deadliest outbreak of violence in almost about 5 decades. On the domestic front, as the country is battling its deadliest attack, the incumbent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's facing a lot of questions about how the intelligence failure failed under him. Now, a national emergency government has been announced along with the War Management Cabinet. The joint statement has been released by Prime Minister Netanyahu and the opposition leader Benny Gantz. The War Cabinet will comprise of Prime Minister Netanyahu, Benny Gantz and the country's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. On the battlefront, reports now indicate that the Israeli town kibbutz, several families have been massacred, including children, after days of street battles. Israel claims to have established complete control on the southern parts of its territory, but the assault has, of course, continued. Now, the rocket fire from the Gaza Strip has struck a hospital in the southern Israeli city of Ashkelon. The Israeli Prime Minister has said that this is an attack whose savagery Israel has not witnessed since the time of the Holocaust.
The savage attacks that Hamas perpetrated against innocent Israelis are mind-boggling, slaughtering families in their homes, massacring hundreds of young people at an outdoor festival, kidnapping scores of women, children, and elderly, even Holocaust survivors.
Now remember, Prime Minister Netanyahu's job was to keep the Israelis safe, but what has happened under his watch. This is a monumental failure of intelligence, and now there is an emergency government that has been formed. People are protesting outside of the Defense Ministry in Tel Aviv. They're urgently demanding for answers. The demonstrators are against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu-led government. They feel that the country is in the wrong hands at a moment of crisis. And this has come when the United Kingdom's Foreign Minister James Cleverly is presently in Israel to show British solidarity. Now, Israel has been amassing its forces near the Gaza border. This includes tanks and other heavy weaponry that is now being moved in to surround the Gaza Strip. An estimated 300,000 reservists and soldiers have now been called in. Experts believe that a ground invasion of Gaza Strip is pretty much imminent. But what could complicate the situation is the plight of the 150-odd hostages who've been taken in by Hamas. And this includes several Israeli military personnel, besides civilians and also some foreign nationals. Now, Hamas claims that 4 of the captives have died in an Israeli airstrike. It has also threatened to kill more if Gaza's civilian targets are bombed without adequate enough advance notice for the civilians to in fact evacuate from the locations. The Western nations have come out in unequivocal support and solidarity of the State of Israel. They've condemned the incursion that has been carried out by Hamas. And what is interesting is this: the United States is pumping in more weapons. It is arming Israel with more weapons to carry out with its offensive at this moment. And also the US aircraft carrying more ammunition and military hardware has arrived near Israel today. Now, Israel has carried out with its relentless campaign of air raids and airstrikes on the Gaza Strip since Saturday afternoon. And according to reports that have come in, more than 1,000 civilians in the Gaza Strip have been killed. 1,500 of the Hamas fighters who had carried out the incursion have also been killed since Saturday. And also, according to reports that have come in, bombs have struck a Hamas-linked Islamic university, a crucial center of learning, besides other residential buildings. Mosques and factories and government buildings have all been targeted in this relentless campaign of air raids by Israel. And according to the United Nations, over 260,000 civilians in Gaza have now been displaced from their homes after the State of Israel has carried out this campaign of air bombings and has also imposed a crippling siege on the 2.3 million Gazans who in fact live in the Gaza Strip. Food, fuel and electricity supplies have all been cut. The threat of a humanitarian disaster is looming large. The European Union has called for a humanitarian corridor to be opened up so that some aid, including food supplies, can reach the region. Now, the Israeli army has said that fighter jets have also destroyed a Hamas anti-aircraft detection system and at least about 80 Hamas targets, including 2 banks that were used to fund Hamas activities. The unrest has also flared up in occupied West Bank, where 15 Palestinians have been killed since Saturday. Protests have been held in solidarity with the people of Gaza in the West Bank as well. While Israel battles Hamas on one front, there's another front that seems to be opening up at the Lebanese border in the north of Israel. The Iran-backed Hezbollah, which is a militant group, has described Hamas's acts as nothing less than heroic. And it has reportedly fired missiles at Israel. This move has triggered a response by Israel, where it has carried out strikes and artillery fire in southern Lebanon as well. Now, earlier in the week, the Israeli strikes had killed 3 Hezbollah fighters. But the most important question is that of ceasefire and of getting aid to the people who are caught in this mind-numbing violence that has broken out, where the number of fatalities on both sides continue to rise with each passing day. So as the war rages on, diplomacy is happening, and it is happening very quietly at this moment. Although leaders of West Asia have called for a ceasefire and for negotiations to begin, questions are being asked about why the Western leaders, by and large, have remained largely silent. They've expressed solidarity, but have not called for a ceasefire. Now, international and regional powers at this moment are seeking to prevent a wider conflict breaking out in West Asia. The American Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to be in the state of Israel on Thursday. China has said that it is seeking to work with Egypt to push both parties of the conflict to cease fire and also to stop violence. Russia has asked both parties and has said that both parties should exercise restraint. Now, the Arab League meet is also expected to happen today to discuss the escalation. Egypt has proposed a 6-hour ceasefire. This is nothing but to deliver humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, who now for more than 48 hours have been cut off from the rest of the world. They are running short of food, of water, of electricity, which has now completely gone off, and also gasoline. But the British Foreign Secretary and the US Secretary of State's visit to the war zone could, of course, play out in 2 very different ways. One is the possibility that there could be more escalation, because remember, the United States is arming Israel with more weapons at this moment. Both Washington and London have showed their unwavering support for the state of Israel and also for the activities of Israel. They've been the very first ones to call Hamas's actions as acts of terror and pure evil. However, at the same time, they're also calling for a resolution. Now, how Hamas will see this high-level visit also is crucial. The West has a big choice to make: either provoke Hamas by announcing more military aid while in Tel Aviv, or bring other country heads on the table who can in fact get Hamas to the negotiating table. But Hamas, remember, is now, at least some factions of it, have been calling for negotiations. Israel, it remains to be seen as to when it would be willing to negotiate at this moment. More perspective at this moment. We're being joined in by our correspondent Jody Cohen, who's joining us on this broadcast from Ra'anana. Jody, at this moment, information has come in that there is an emergency government that has been formed, where Prime Minister Netanyahu and also the leaders of the opposition have come together. At this moment, do we know what the contours of this government are?
Hi, Mohammed. Yes, so it's just been announced that Prime Minister Netanyahu and Benny Gantz, who's the former defense minister and the head of the National Unity Party, and he's a major figure in the opposition, they have agreed to establish an emergency unity government in past times of war, and it will include the existing coalition plus Benny Gantz's party. And one of Benny Gantz's sort of conditions was that he wanted to form a small war cabinet that will direct this war. So that will include Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defence Minister Gallant, and former Defence Minister Gantz, as well as some observers from Likud and from National Unity. Now, they have left a seat open for Yair Lapid, who is the head of the opposition, if he chooses to join. He had another condition. He wanted to become foreign minister, which reportedly Netanyahu rejected. But we are now seeing the formation of a national unity government. The local elections here were supposed to take place at the end of October. They've now been postponed, and all legislation, government resolutions that are not to do with the current war situation have also been postponed. So the priority really is focusing on the war with Hamas.
Absolutely indeed, Jodie Cohen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and getting us all those details. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.